Well, surprise, surprise. Dr. Mengele, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Fauci pleaded the fifth well over 100 times yesterday. So what's our takeaway from all of this? Now, for those of you who might have followed me in the past during COVID, I used to post quite regularly. I obviously, it was no secret, wasn't a believer of all the craziness that was going on. Now, I had no problem with people choosing to do what they wanted to do. If they wanted to get vaccinated, so be it. If they wanted to wear masks, so be it. I was all for having personal choice. And I was also for common sense. And how I came to that point was I applied a simple rule in life. Cui bono? Who benefits? And that's how I looked at COVID from the start. When all the insanity started, I thought about it and I said, who benefits? And for me, it was very simple. Watch some of my old videos. I looked at it, it was 2020, it was an election year coming. Trump was somebody they didn't want in, and China was in a free fall with the economy. There was lots of things. And to be able to not figure out that this came from a lab, when the said lab is the major center for studying this sort of thing and it comes out of China, I mean, come on. You'd have to be pretty stupid not to connect the dots. But apparently, a lot of people were. And I think the reason was because they trusted the credentialed experts. They trusted people like Dr. Fauci, Dr. Tam in Canada, Bonnie Henry in the province I live in. They trusted all these people because they followed them blindly, because they had succumbed to fear. They just started believing every single thing. Now, I don't blame people if they're afraid or they just don't know any better. But at some point, you have to apply some common sense and say, hey, folks, what's going on here? This doesn't make any logical sense. It's not like humanity had not faced viruses and things like that before. We lived through the Black Plagues. The countries and nations have gone through so much. How did so much insanity prevail? Well, it was basically a confluence of the intellectual class, the media, the chattering class. I would say to you, don't forget all those people that promoted this insanity, that promoted forced vaccinations, that promoted segregating communities. People like media, like the CBC, like all the mainstream networks in the US. I remember when Stephen Colbert did a song and dance promoting vaccine shots. These people should be held to account. It wasn't the fact that, again, if they chose to get vaccinated, they chose to do whatever they did, that was their choice. That was their free will to do so. But when you're Prime Minister of our country at the time, Justin Trudeau, who basically condemned people for wanting to have a choice, wanting more information, wanting to make an informed decision, when those people were labeled as less than basically the deplorables, like Hillary called people in the US, that was disgusting. And you look at how the truckers' convoy was treated. It took people rising up and saying, this is nonsense, this is insanity. And it cost so many people in so many ways. I personally lived through it. My own mother was in a nursing home. I couldn't see her. Finally, in her final week before dying, I got to spend some time with her. That's how ridiculous this was. It divided people, it alienated people, but it also showed us people that were independent thinkers versus people that basically towed the party line. People who just thought one way and didn't think another way. So the real takeaway with this is really very simple. Fauci said one thing while he wrote something else privately in his thoughts, in his diaries, those records that he tracked. How could that not also been the case for those folks in Canada who are leading the charge here? So I would encourage you, again, to be weary of this sort of thing if it ever crops up in the future. Also, be careful of those now who have totally done a 180-degree shift and said, oh, they have their mea culpa and said, not I never said any of this stuff, that wasn't me. Just watch the old clips. I remember Dr. Bonnie Henry basically telling people to not go meet people of their family who were unvaccinated. You weren't even supposed to have dinner with the deplorable people. And Dr. Tam in Canada, and again, like I said, all the politicians of all stripes, they went and towed the party line. And why? Like I said, cui bono, who benefits? It was a financial gain, a power gain, and a control gain. That was what it all came down to. And if we're going to avoid such a thing in the future, what we have to do, honestly, is be critical thinkers. We have to think through these sorts of things when they come up the next time, because I assure you, these ops, these psychological operations, they do come up. This is something one has to be aware of, and that's not being a conspiracy theorist. Again, how many conspiracies have been proven correct through the testimony, well, not the lack of testimony, or more like Dr. Fauci's diary testimony, doing testimony by itself yesterday. The lab leak theory, the masks don't work theory, the vaccines don't work theory. All of this stuff got proven true. And I feel for those people who went along and basically trusted in the science, trusted in the expert class, the credential class. Those people must have had a real blow to the system yesterday. But more so, I think those people who were drunk on power, who sees this as an opportunity to condemn their fellow citizens, those are the people that should be ashamed today. They should be the ones apologizing to friends, family, or colleagues who they basically condemned and treated as third-class citizens.